There's a certain kind of person who will sit at a desk for 4 hours, hunched over a piece of metal smaller than a grain of rice, just to make a 100-year-old watch tick again. No pay, no audience, just them, a loop, and a spring that could launch across the room if they breathe wrong. Psychologists have actually studied people like this, and what they found explains a lot more than just a hobby. It explains how these people think, how they handle stress, and honestly, how they probably approach everything in life. So today we're breaking down the real psychology of watch repairers, piece by piece, and by the end of this video, you'll understand why this boring hobby actually attracts some of the sharpest, calmest minds out there. Stick around till number 4. It's the one that made even me rethink how I see patience. And stay till the end, because the last section explains something about you that you've probably never noticed. Let's start with the obvious one, patience. But it's not ordinary patience. It's a specific psychological trait called delayed gratification tolerance, and watch repairers have it in abnormally high amounts. Think about what the hobby actually demands. You can spend an entire afternoon just to remove a single stuck screw without damaging the plate around it. There's no shortcut, no fast-forward button. The watch will not reward rushing. It will punish it immediately with a scratched dial or a snapped hairspring. Most people today live in a world engineered for instant results, instant messages, instant food, instant content. But watch repairers have trained their brain to find satisfaction in slowness. That's not just patience, that's a completely different relationship with time itself. There's a psychological concept called process orientation, where someone finds more reward in the doing than in the finishing. Watch repairers are a textbook example. If they only cared about the end result, they'd just buy a new watch. They don't. They care about the 4 hours it took to get there. Try explaining that satisfaction to someone who's never felt it. You genuinely can't. You have to sit at the bench yourself. Here's where it gets interesting. Watch mechanisms are one of the most orderly systems a human being can physically interact with. Every gear has an exact place. Every spring has an exact tension. There is a right answer and there is a wrong answer, and the watch will tell you immediately which one you chose. That kind of clear, structured feedback loop is deeply comforting to a specific psychological profile. People who feel a strong internal need for order in an otherwise chaotic world. This isn't about control freak behavior. It's about something psychologists call self-efficacy, the belief that your actions directly produce predictable outcomes. In most of life, effort and outcome are messy and disconnected. You can work hard at your job and still get overlooked. You can be a good person and still get hurt. But a watch? A watch is honest. Fix it correctly, and it runs. That direct cause and effect relationship is incredibly rare in modern life, and watch repairers have found a small, contained universe where it always holds true. Now let's talk about something that surprises people. Watch repairers often form genuine emotional bonds with the objects they fix, especially vintage or inherited pieces. There's a psychological term for this, object attachment theory. It's the same mechanism behind why people keep a deceased relative's handwriting or refuse to throw away a childhood toy. The object becomes a physical anchor for memory and identity. A watch is uniquely powerful for this because it was worn. It sat on someone's wrist through decades of their actual life. Their wedding day, their first job interview, ordinary Tuesday mornings. When a repairer brings a stopped watch back to life, they're not just fixing a machine. On a psychological level, they're restoring a piece of someone's lived time. That's why so many repairers describe an almost emotional moment the first time a long-dead watch ticks again after repair. It's not really about the watch. It's about continuity, proof that something from the past can still function in the present. If you've ever fixed something that belonged to someone you loved, comment "still ticking" below. I want to see how many of you know exactly what I mean. Here's the one I promised you, the psychological twist most people don't expect. Watch repair is one of the most reliable ways to trigger what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi called flow state. That mental zone where you lose track of time completely because a task perfectly matches your skill level with its difficulty. Flow requires three very specific conditions: clear goals, immediate feedback, and a challenge that's hard enough to demand full focus but not so hard it causes panic. Watch Repair hits all three perfectly. You know exactly what success looks like. The watch ticks. You get immediate feedback. It either moves or it doesn't. And the difficulty is precisely calibrated to demand total concentration, because one wrong move under the loop and you're starting over. This is actually why repairers describe the hobby as meditative, even though it's technically demanding, high-precision work. Flow states have been shown to lower cortisol and reduce anxious rumination, meaning this hobby isn't just satisfying, it's genuinely therapeutic in a clinical sense. And here's the twist: people who regularly access flow states in one area of life tend to seek it out in others too: their careers, their relationships, their other hobbies. Watch repairers aren't just fixing watches. They've trained their brain to recognize and chase a specific kind of deep focus. And once you've felt real flow, everything else starts to feel a little too shallow by comparison. That one hit different, right? Drop a watch in the comments if you've felt real flow state doing something completely unrelated to watches. Next, and this shows up consistently in hobbyist community surveys, people drawn to watch repair tend to score high on analytical and mechanical reasoning, often alongside strong visual spatial thinking. That makes sense. A mechanical watch can have well over 100 individual parts, all interacting in sequence. To diagnose a problem, you can't just guess. You have to mentally simulate the entire gear train, spot where the chain of cause and effect breaks down, and isolate one faulty part among dozens of moving pieces. That's a very specific kind of intelligence, systems thinking. It's the same cognitive skill used by engineers, programmers, and diagnosticians, and it tends to attract people who enjoy understanding how things work far more than simply using them. Watch repairers rarely see a broken watch as junk. They see it as a puzzle with a hidden, knowable answer. And that reframe, that refusal to see failure as final, is a mindset that tends to bleed into how these people approach problems everywhere else in life too. Last psychological insight, and honestly, I think it's the most important one. Watch repair is almost never done for an audience. There's no crowd watching you under a loop at 11 p.m. The satisfaction is entirely internal, which means people who stick with this hobby long-term usually have a trait that's becoming rarer by the year: intrinsic motivation. They're not doing it for likes, praise, or recognition. They're doing it because the act itself is the reward. Psychologists consider this one of the strongest predictors of long-term mastery in any skill, because motivation that depends on external validation burns out. Motivation that comes from within doesn't. That's a quiet kind of confidence, not loud, not performative, just a deep internal trust that the work is worth doing whether or not anyone ever sees it. And people who carry that trait tend to bring the same quiet confidence into the rest of their lives too. So if you're someone who loves fixing watches, you're not just good with your hands. You're patient in a world built for impatience. You crave honest cause and effect in a life that rarely offers it. You form real emotional bonds with the objects you restore. You know what real flow state feels like. You think in systems, and you're quietly, internally confident enough to do meaningful work with no audience at all. And if you made it this far in the video, watching a full psychological breakdown of a niche mechanical hobby, that tells me something about you too. You're someone who actually wants to understand things, not just scroll past them. You sat through 9 minutes of nuance instead of skipping to the end. That's not an accident. That's exactly the kind of mind this channel is built for. Every week I break down the hidden psychology behind everyday things, hobbies, habits, relationships, the way people think without even realizing it. If that's your kind of content, hit subscribe now, because next week's video digs into something even more surprising. And honestly, I think it might explain you even better than this one did. See you in the next one.